So it's my great pleasure to welcome you at the breakout session, which is devoted to the issue of strengthening our supply chains, which is inextricably linked also with, of course, our support to Ukraine through different, business and industrial networks that we have, and of course, clusters in the first instance. Well, I think the issue of resilience has been quite a lot covered both yesterday and today. We are going indeed to go a bit deeper, and we would be very much looking forward to hear from the panelists, but also from the audience. Let me just say, to stress some of the, let's say, key principles. I mean, we indeed, I think are now fully aware of the importance and the risk that the supply chain disruptions create for us, for the economy, and I think all of that is actually making us aware how much it's important to stand together. We've seen that this unity was shaky in the beginning of COVID. I would say so far it's impressively seems to be, staying in terms of our response to Russian aggression in Ukraine. But I think again it's very important it would stay with us. We have seen the impact of the war across many areas. Of course, energy, raw materials being the obvious one, but we also had quite significant turbulences of agri-food, and we see actually that supply chain disruptions are affecting other industrial sectors. And I think the survey that we have done, notably through with the support of the collaboration platform, of the cluster collaboration platform, again showed how much valuable insight and knowledge we have thanks to you. So there was a lot of, I would say, hardships through the pandemic. This continues, and how we could respond. I mean, I think the response, and this is, clearly strong view from the Commission side, is to actually, I mean, the single market is I would say alive and kicking, but we need to make it more resilient, and this is the reasons why we have rolled out these different initiatives. I will not go into them again, but we really hope, I mean, for your support to this, because for example, about single market emergency instrument, there is going to be quite a lot of discussion, and I think the position of the industry and clusters will be also important from the point of view of what positions the member states will take when it comes, to negotiations in the Council. We show the strengths of this community by the fact that early into the war we have been able, with, I would say, enthusiastic response from your side, to set up a platform, Clusters Support Ukraine, and also another platform, the EN Supply Chain Resilience Platform, which was set up together with the Europe Enterprise Network, but many of you have been part of it. That shows basically that, that our networks are agile, and we can actually react to these new challenges in an effective and fast manner. Well, it's great that we could meet here. I myself, I mean, for me, it's a first occasion to see, let's say, clusters community at large. I see a lot of, I would say, energy and commitment here. So let's indeed share our experience and engage in a discussion. We take, let's say, the outcome of the sessions very seriously. We will have a very, I would say, very substantive report, because these are the things, the recommendations on which we want to work with you together in the coming months. Well, so with this, I would like now to introduce our first speaker, Anaïs Lecorvaisier. Anaïs is the network manager at Council of European Bioregions. Anaïs is based in Barcelona. And I could say many more things about Anaïs, but I don't want to eat into your presentation, and feel free to add more about your path so far.
Thank you. So, can you hear me okay? No.
It works
okay.
now.
Okay, thank you. So thank you for the introduction. I won't say much more about myself, but I will talk today a little bit about the organization I work for and what happened, let's say, to us, especially related to supply chain. And it was even before this current unfortunate crisis, but the COVID one, because this is, I think, an experience that we gained and that can serve through, let's say, support preparedness in avoiding supply chain disruptions. So just a nice map of who we are. A Council of European Bioregions, we're about 40 members, and maybe after these few days here in Prague, we will be more members, because we represent 40 ecosystems in the life science sectors all across Europe, as you can see. Just going backwards, let's say, to what happened. I mean, we all know, we all suffered this pandemic that started already 2 years ago. It seems like the world has changed quite a bit since then. But basically, the context was a lot of pressure on the company and society as a whole. Obviously, the race for equipment, vaccines, stealing plane from each other, countries from all across the globe looking for the gloves, from the protection for a healthcare worker. So really a context of obviously crisis, very complex one, and clear challenges. So collaboration, the supply chain disruption, the people could not have access to what they were needing, and in that context of competition, and that's it's like a memory going back. But I think this is where we started to understand that there was a big collaboration needed. So just a few examples of what was done, and I see here Antonio from the European Clusters Alliance. So there was this famous morning meetings. I'm not a morning person, but I must say during weeks and months, we had this 8 o'clock, I think it was, every morning from home, trying to find solution, put people together. And this is where I think the cluster community is a very active one. But it was really an immediate response from very different fields. Obviously, our field is health, which the definition we might need to talk about because it's broader than pharmaceutical. It's a very big field, from hospital, university, academy, and so on. And people actually responded very all together to really, I would say the most important was identifying the companies that could actually support. So, and also understanding where were their problems in terms of supply chain. Doing mappings, so understanding better, where everybody was located. Obviously organizing together with the Commission, ECHA, and our cluster matchmaking events. So it's like if in this room we have somebody that produce a product that can help finalize gloves, and then who can send them. So it was actually to really find those people and put them together, because everybody was really in a moment where collaboration was absolutely key. So all that crisis management, which under pressure, it seems like all the hurdle go away in terms of administration, in terms of limitation of, no, we don't usually work with these or these people. So this all went away, and it allowed, I think, to really find solution with this. We did this 3 matchmaking events between the vaccine developers, those producers, to really engage with the company and obviously try to overcome those hurdles that supply chain disruption were giving us. So from there were really a whole lot of next steps in terms of the collaboration that started. So we obviously now work a lot closer with DG GROW, but also with the new agency that was created, ERA, also the EIT Health, and EIT Manufacturing. Maybe we will talk with Tero, one of our members, afterwards. He will explain a little bit more a concrete project. But I think this kind of let's say, supply chain disruption is only overcome by obviously policy at long term, but also by really collaborating on the ground. And as you mentioned, the single market. I mean, we were collaborating companies from Spain with companies from Germany, with companies from Lithuania. So it's really making Europe a whole, and not just this very fragmented market we were used to. So one of concrete outcome that is, I think, very important and gave us some visibility, but also enable more projects and work in this field is this biomanufacturing landscape. The second wave is about to be published. First wave was published last year, but we understood better with EIT Health and EIT Manufacturing who is working in the field. So biomanufacturing is not just the production of drugs and pharmaceutical, but it's also related to advanced therapies, which in our case is very important for new drug development in the future. So this report actually came together and helped us understand really what's needed. And here we're looking at talent, which we had a session very interesting this morning, that there's a huge gap, so we need more. And also in terms of innovation and business investment. So anyway, again, trying to link this to this supply chain that we understand better, who are the actors, and I think it's key to actually find solution to the concrete problems. And just to wrap up, because then we have time for discussion, I would say lesson learned for future, hopefully not so many, but to be prepared is cross-sector collaboration is key. So, we talk to manufacturers, we talk to digital clusters, we really opened up. Trust toward the solution providers and the connectors. I always say that I think cluster managers are natural born connectors, and this was really showcased, I think, during the pandemic, and I hope to support also our Ukrainian friends. And very important to avoid silos and too narrow definition. As I said, health for us is way more than just putting drugs on the market and producing them. So the supply chain mean a lot more, and they're bigger than just producing drugs. And then next step, because we need to have a concrete roadmap in the head, is so mapping, connecting, preventing, and be prepared. And this is, I think, what we should be working on, because unfortunately, the world's not looking so great at the moment, but we hope we'll have a brighter light, just like the one that is in my face right now, and that we will get out of this crisis. So anyway, and I recall on the wider definition of health ecosystem, because this is a lot bigger than what it is maybe written now. And this is the team, so if you need more information on us and understanding what we've done, they're in the room. And thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Anaïs. Yeah. First, thanks a lot for the great discipline, indeed, giving more time for the discussion. But you reminded me what actually I've heard even long before coming to DG Grow. It was quite famous, the role of clusters in actually managing the pandemic. Responding to the pandemic, the fact, of your agility of this, you working as a glue, as a connector. That has been quite impressive. I also recall the report that has been actually quite, describing all of this. And so thanks a lot for sharing this. And in terms of discussion, so generally, let's enjoy the fact that we are in a physical setting. So I would very much welcome comments, questions after we talk to the speakers. But if anyone would like to ask something sensitive or doesn't want to wait, we can also use the Slido platform to post questions at any time. So now I would like to give the floor to Mateja Dermastia, who is a CEO of Anteia. Mateja comes from Slovenia. Anteia is a sustainability consultancy with offices not just in Ljubljana, but also Stuttgart and Nairobi, which I learned with great interest. And you have done a lot of things, but
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm just a little bit surprised. Thank you that you make my slides. I was terribly late, I know. Okay. So it's
I will perfect, as you see. Yeah.
Is it the one that I can?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. So I'm coming a little bit from different world, and today I will share with you a perspective of macro regions. One is called Alpenspace, and the second one is Danube. And we are not so widespread that she is, but I will try to give you the perspective on how to bring together the resilience and circularity, and how to understand also the business models, which is so critical that we can move in both directions. As I said, this is experience from Alpenspace and the Danube region, and I will talk also about the digitalization, not so much about the digitalization, but about the tool which is called Value Chain Generator, which helps to build resilience and circular value chains in Europe. So as we heard today, and yesterday, and also you make the introduction, we are living in a very turbulent world, okay? So we do have viruses, we do have war, and we start understanding that this will be all the time. But what we have to internalize is that we do not have much time, and we have to really react now if we want to get the targets 2030, and if we don't want to be in a really big climate issues and many things in 2030. So it's, what is from the company's point of view, what is the real problem, you know? It's clusters and then it's companies. It's pretty much the same, you know? During the COVID, but in particular because with the Ukraine, in the Danube region, but also part of the Alpen space, extreme loss of inputs and the markets. Energy prices, this is the problem of all of us. Inflation, it's getting real. You know, we have to start understanding. We used to live in inflation 30 years ago, but now it's a new one. Green Deal. We do not talk much about the Green Deal, what is the impact of the companies. It's extreme impact. You know, they have to deal with this. We have to figure out how to do it, how to go down with the emissions, you know, how to embed our processes into the value chains, that the whole value chain or supply chains will decrease emissions. And then is, of course, the regulation, how to cope with supply chain due diligence, how to cope with corporate sustainability reporting system. This is everything what is actually also the ecosystem of the companies, and it's a big burden that we have to deal with. And what companies are doing, so they are bringing actually together two things. One is supply chain resilience and efficiency, and on another way, it's so-called green growth potential. So it's how to make, you know, that we are not getting every day, every single second to extract new materials from our earth. And it was in the sessions 2 or 3 in the morning I heard, yes, this is the biggest source of emission, you know, and we overlook this. So if we can cope with the extractions, we will cope with the emissions. So, and then what's the problems? When we did the study, you know, the study was done under the Ukraine context, you know, on the impact of the Ukraine, you know, we realized, you know, that there is 3 simple things. One is companies do not have access to the circular collaboration models. You know, the models exist, technology exists, you know, but how to implement into the practice, this is still a little bit weak, and a little bit has to go down to the earth that the companies can get it, in particular small and medium sized. We understand that multinationals can do it, we understand that big companies can do it, but for small and medium sized, it's an issue. And then where is this cross-sectoral opportunities? So amazing technologies are available in Europe, but it has to go to the practice, and we really push on this, that this will be available and the companies get access, and that we can move further, you know, to the green growth. And then, you know, very strange but very realistic, suppliers and buyers, when it comes to residuals and waste, which is important part of the value chains, they not know each other. You know, it's because the companies doesn't want to move. Why to go to the diversification and introduce new technology, dealing with the waste, dealing with the residuals, sell the residuals, buying the residuals. It's a new game, you know, and they do not know each other. And then, you know, we try to tackle the problem of circular bioeconomy value chains through the project which was called Alplink Bioeco. It was quite a couple of years ago, you know, but the project realized that clusters really can play the role. It can be a driver of the circular bioeconomy development. I will not go to the details, but the project comes out with this tool which is called the value chain generator. The second thing is, it is Danube Alliance, which is the project flagships of the Danube region. It supports, I would not say support development of the clusters, but it support how the clusters interlinked and how they can use digital technology to bring forward circular bioeconomy. And there is 3 things that it comes out as a study, and if our work with the 40 clusters along the Danube region. So majority of the clusters in the Danube region, they operate in the traditional world, you know. They understand their business, the companies understand their business, they do their business good. But what is a little bit outside is becoming a little bit problematic, because the key driver is innovation research. But if we want to go to the circular value chains, we also have to understand very basics about the companies, what they are producing, how much they are producing, how much supply they do have, what are they buying, and to whom they are selling. These data usually are not really available. And then it's, you know, the really cross-network engagements on a daily basis, you know, how we can empower this, you know, because this still, it's more actions which is going by clusters or the big events, but when it's coming to the real exchange of data, we understand that there is still a lot of work to be done. And what value chain generator do is define collaboration opportunities. It's finds, you know, for one company to another, how to use waste, how to sell the waste, who will buy the waste, who will buy the byproduct, who will buy the residuals, you know, and can manage, you know, to bring these partners together by names, you know. So one by one, we can build the whole value chains, which is based on the residuals and the waste. And this, in addition, you know, as I mentioned several times, it's also open, show the opportunities to use technologies which are available to fill the gaps. So it's what is the advantage is that the tool is based on the artificial intelligence, it uses artificial intelligence, it uses the machine learning, and why this is important, you know, because it's suddenly there is a chance to enlarge the scope of the companies which can be attached to the network. So it's not about 100, it's not 1,000, it's not 5,000, it's at the moment a reach of 3 million companies across Europe. So this allow in a near future, you know, to really scale up circular bio-based value chains. So, and then how does it look? You know, it's just one example, you know, I will not go to the details because I can talk additional half an hour. However, you know, it's just to illustrate, you know, so you can find the value chains from my residuals to the right. But I can also find my suppliers on the left side, so that suddenly that we can have the whole value chain together, and that then the companies with the cluster manager support can really start working and figure out what can work and how I will move this into the practice. So, and there is also a lot of input from the regional developers and the cluster, let's say on a little bit on the planning, investment readiness. So if you know your cluster, if you know your region, you can understand what is actually really missing, you know, because there is companies, someone in the morning said, you know, we are different, you know, those in Finland or Slovenia, we do have different realities, and these different realities can be reflected, and these different realities sometimes need different technology, and you can plan what is needed, what will be the best way for the region to move forward to the green growth. So just some examples, you know, we did some pilots on the brewery industry. We tried to understand what is the cost, you know, how they can go really down with the cost instead of they are sending residuals to the landfills or disposal, you know, they can start actually earning money. So what's happening? You reduce the cost because you save the cost during the treatments, and you start making additional income streams because you are selling your industrial waste or residuals. And then from the cluster manager's perspective, we do have here ChemiCluster Bayern, you know, and their experiences in the last 7 months shows that they can reduce the time to find the right partner, a good partner for the companies from 80 to 90%. So, you know, we gain time, you know, to come with a good partnership, with a good profile of the companies for the cluster members. Okay, so this is what is in the moment. What you see here is the companies which are currently in the value chain generator. And currently they're running 3 projects. One is Bistrocal in Germany. The second one is the Nube Alliance that I referred several times today. And then is the Horizon Project Europe C2 Act, which is building bioeconomy strategy for Eastern Europe, and where value chain generator will play a bit of role in the implementation. And then in the practice, in the company level, it's in the brewing industry, just awarding with Mind for Machine grant in Germany. It's in dairy industry, in cellulose for the sustainable biomass. So just I would like to make the attention, something is for the company to solve the company problem, but it's also for technology providers, those who develop technology, to help them to find the market, to help them to find the supply. This also can be done. And there is some projects in negotiation stage for the biorefineries. So it's, thank you. I do not have more.
Excellent.
Okay, thank you so much.
So, thanks a lot, Matea. This was a clock, you know, but you made it. Well, I mean, it's really fascinating, I must say. VCG, I mean, it's, I don't know, looks like you really sold it. I mean, so you are like a product for the future or the tool for the future. I would be myself quite curious, you know, to learn a bit more what's the uptake. How much does it cost, by the way? And but we leave it for later. Now I would like to give the floor to Tero Pispanen. Tero is the senior executive at Health Turku and representative of Bioman 4R2 Eurocluster. And Tero is expert in internationalization, among other things. So over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Also, I'm very pleased to be able to present our Bioman project in this event. Or maybe a little bit of my background. I started my career in the medtech industry, and I was responsible of the supply chain for the Far East to Europe and to USA in mid-90s, when we didn't have, where we have very little political risks, but mainly economical risks. But in a way, we established the base for current let's say, risks of Europe, what has been realized now through pandemic, for example, the dependency of components from the Far East. So that largely happened in the 90s and has been continuing until nowadays. Yeah, the medtech and pharmaceutical industries are major contributors to wealth in Europe, and we are kind of happy to work in this field. So we got the pharmaceutical sector employs more than 800,000, and the medtech sector employs more than 700,000 high-quality jobs in Europe. Interestingly, there are more than 32,000 companies in the medtech field in Europe, and 95% of them are SMEs. The amount is not as big in the pharmaceutical sector because it is dominated by big pharma, but of course much of the R&D and early phase innovation is still done in SMEs. And the market in Europe in both sectors are huge, 120 billion in the medtech and almost 300 billion by 2025 in the pharmaceutical field. But our industries are highly dependent at the moment on Asia. And as I mentioned, this shift practically happened in the 1990s, mid-1990s. So at those days, Europe, Japan, and USA produced 90% of the world's active pharmaceutical ingredients, kind of raw materials to drugs, APIs. Nowadays, for example, USA imports 75 to 80% of its APIs from India and China. Luckily, the situation is not quite as bad in Europe as it is in Europe, because Europe itself is the main source of active pharmaceutical ingredients to its own industry, but China is the second supplier, and we do have risks. For example, existing risks for the whole healthcare system of the world. I was talking 3 weeks ago with the CEO of Orion Pharmaceuticals, and she said that there are currently 6 production plants of penicillin in the whole world, and they are all located in China. So imagine if China decides to close its borders, either through a political risk or, for example, COVID or another pandemic. So our whole healthcare system would be vulnerable. We don't have any more paracetamol manufacturing plant in Europe. Luckily, there have been lately some individual projects, especially in the pharma sector, where they have realized these risks, and then, for example, Sanofi is building a raw materials manufacturing plant in France. So, but the medical supply chains, they are also vulnerable. I have been talking to our SMEs, and they say that it is not only the reagents, it is electronics, it is even rubber components that the supply chains have broken because of the pandemic and because now of the Ukrainian war. And the war itself has made life of SMEs and investments harder, because country risks in Europe, especially in those countries neighboring Russia, are much higher than they used to be. For example, I was talking to a new venture capital fund who was able to raise the latest fund in February this year, and their first closing was delayed because their US partners, investment partners, they withdrew because of the war in Ukraine, because they saw the country risks in Europe too high. So that leads to me to the venture capital investments to the biotech and medtech sector. I'm sad to say that during the past 10 years, there has been a declining trend of venture capital to the sector. Not in terms of numbers, but in terms of a proportion of the available venture capital money. So 10 years ago, almost 35% of all European venture capital money went to healthcare system or health sectors. Now, last year, less than 20%. At the same time, kind of the proportional number of companies who have been invested there is also a slight declining trend, but not so this has been more constant. So this means that each funding round, each SME gets less money proportionally what they got 10 years ago, and that makes the life of our sector SMEs much harder than it was 10 years ago. So how our project plans to tackle the needs? Of course, our long-term objective is to make our European health sector economy more resilient. And I'm also glad to say that low carbon and fewer carbon footprints and circular economies, they have been well received in the sector. For example, we got here in Turku, we got the big manufacturing site of Bayer, and then they have been able to reduce their carbon footprint by 88% in the past 7 years. And so the direct objective of the project is, of course, to make collaboration, establish a Europe cluster in the biomanufacturing and medtech field, and launch the SME funding program thanks to the Cascade funding. And thanks to the Cascade funding, we hopefully will be able to diminish some of the risks seen by the venture capitalists so that they can start again investing bigger amounts in the sector per funding round. So who we are from the north, Finland, Health Turku is the coordinator. Then we got MedSilesia from Poland. We got LifeTech Zone from the Netherlands. We got Medicine from Paris region. We got BioCat from Spain. Oh, I forgot. We got Bioregion Stern from Stuttgart region. And Council of European Bioregions, the cluster of cluster organization or meta-cluster organization that ANAIS represented has 40 cluster members throughout the Europe. So this also helps us really building a true European biocluster in here. And we have been, and as ANAIS said, we have been strongly involved in the EU biomanufacturing survey by EIT Health and EIT Manufacturing.
Thank you very much, Tero. Indeed, for the fascinating insight into, on the one hand, the challenge that indeed we face, you know, the issue of APIs. Again, I was quite also, I would say, significant when I recall internal commission discussions, you know, during the crisis and afterwards. And again, the project is super interesting. So I wish you anyway all the success with this. And we now would move to the next speaker. And we are, you know, we had now a number of very interesting cases of how the issue of supply chain stress is being tackled by specific project. Now we are moving, let's say, closer directly to Ukraine. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Olga Trofimova. Olga is, on the one hand, you know, a cluster manager for Ukrainian automotive cluster, but she also is a representative of the Ukrainian Cluster Alliance, you know, with which we have been collaborating, and she has an extensive experience as a management consultant. Again, Olga, if you want to say more about yourself, you're most welcome. Over to you.
Thank you. Does it work? No. Okay. Yeah. First of all, I would like to say that I'm from Ukraine, and please raise your hand who knows where is the country. Because 20 years ago, when I was in Brussels in a conference for Galileo, when I said that I'm from Ukraine, everybody asked, where is it? So, yes, I'm from Ukraine, and I'm from Kharkiv. Do you know where is the city is? Yes. Raise your hand. Yes, good. And I'm exactly from the district. It's could be even understand like a cluster, because we had big aviation institute with a lot of startups, with a lot of laboratories. We had really big aviation plant and engineering plant and aerospace plant. And on 23rd of February, we celebrated certification of management consultants for Mariupol, Melitopol, Berdyansk, and Zaporizhia, Azov region, which is fully occupied now. And everybody knows, I do not even ask you if you know what happened on 21st of February. But you know, for us, it was just darkness. Fully darkness, and nobody understood what to do. Did we have problems? We still have these problems, and we still have this war, and we still don't know when it finished. And may I ask you if anybody of you support somehow Ukraine, support somehow Ukrainian people? Thank you. And may I ask you if anybody of you have projects or have in mind collaboration with business, with Ukrainian business or Ukrainian clusters? Thank you so much. Stand with Ukraine. Good. So when we saw this problem, we made a decision. Each of us, each Ukrainian made a decision. We do not need Russian world. We want to be Ukrainians. We want to be democracy country with common values. And we made our choice. And thank you, Europeans and whole world, that you also made your choice. Even if your country is neutral or didn't want to talk about it or call it conflict, whatever. I know that all people all over the world make this choice to be humanic-centric and more oriented in this field and not thinking only about gas, money, and such as things. Every day we pay high price for this. Hundreds of people. This is really high price. And our solution, which we see, one of solution, we do understand there should be much more actions, but we do see, you know, everybody can do what you can do. I'm a tiny woman up to 50, what can I do? But what we did, We have established a cluster alliance, how it works, okay. And on 24th of March, we have started to work from the beginning of March, but on 24th, we already had 16 clusters who joined us, and now we have 37. And we are working on cross-cultural, cross-sectors, with different sectors, and we group them with groups of clusters. We don't call it mega clusters because we're only 6 months old. We simply didn't have for all these procedures, but we are working and we are trying to support them. We have national program. It was actually before the war. We have developed strategy. We had a lot of activities. And by the way, this morning from Polish metal cluster person come and said, oh yes, you remember we did a meeting in April for your clusters, for your companies, B2B meetings. And thank you. And thank you, because most of companies and clusters we start to collaborate is, we met first time. I met Antonio first time, but thank you. So, yes, this is one of the solutions. And moreover, I should say that from one side, we are united clusters. From another side, me as being a president of Management Consultants of Ukraine, I made a call for mobilization of consultants, and we do now support for SME for free. Yes, and companies give this consultant support to survive, to proceed their activities, to be relocated from Bucha, from Kharkiv, from other cities. It is important. It is important, and we do what we can do. Yes, we even become a partner of EIT Manufacturing. We signed a memorandum, and we start to proceed. From the beginning of the war, we are a member of European Cluster Alliance, and we highly appreciate it. And thank you so much. But again, what should be next? How to proceed, how to go further? Do you have any plans how to proceed to support Ukrainian supply chains, Ukrainian companies, Ukrainian clusters? Could you raise your hand? Good. I will come to you on a lunch break. Well, so yes, we can do it. I mean, we are capable. For example, our Ukrainian automotive and mobility cluster, this is our customers. We work for years with these customers. Yes, we have a map of our participants, and actually I do have such maps for different clusters, just because I'm from automotive sector. This is the map for automotive sector. And moreover, you know, we are quite big country. Actually, 7 Czech Republic could be inside. And migration, internal migration, it's maybe 3 or 4 population of Austria, and outside migration, it's the whole population of Austria. Can you imagine it? And of course, we do have a lot of challenges, which everybody understand. We have some, not some, we have full of projects, how to decide it. And being here, participating in this conference, it's also great honor for all of us. I would like also to introduce our clusters, which are here, our women, our strong girls, which came because our men are not allowed to enter to leave the country. So first of all, I would like to introduce Tatiana Vorontsova. She is the head of medical cluster, and a week ago she was in Slovyansk providing training for our soldiers on first aid. And she's looking forward for a lot of collaboration and to move forward. Thank you, Tatiana. Also, Nadia Karplyuk, who is representing automation and engineering cluster in Vinnytsia, supporting the companies to go forward. Svetlana Kropelnitska from Ivano-Frankivsk, creativity cluster. Olena Sadoma from automation and engineering cluster, headed by Alexander Yurchak, who is actually head of Ukrainian Cluster Alliance also, and Olga from fashion cluster, who is actually, this cluster was born during the war, and you know, the biggest value which we understand and hope many people understand, that we are not competitors anymore. And this cluster was born among competitors, with competitors who were competitors before the war, but right now they are working together and they produce some clothes for military purpose and people who moved from regions which are under occupation right now. Yeah, Ukraine is very great country actually, and in July, by the way, we had a new law on industrial parks. So our government is also working hard to attract partners. We do not want to be begging around the world. We want to be your partners. And we want to be part of supply chain, and not only supply chain, value chain. We have a lot of engineers, we have a lot of human capacities, and still a lot of people who really could be valued, not only for Ukraine, but for Europe. So again, I think this old paradigm should be changed. We pay high price for that, but I think again that the whole world made already a big step forward in the evolution and becoming not only Homo sapiens, but humanic population of the world. So be with us. Thank you so much. We have, again, a lot of precise proposals and precise projects, but again, we need your support. And could you raise your hand who want to be a participants of Ukraine recovery? Thank you. Stand with Ukraine.
Thank you, Olga, for this very powerful testimony. And I think you see it again, you know. Olga, you said it's not about begging, it's not about complaining. You are basically coming with a very powerful message that in spite of the fact that Ukraine is under attack, Ukraine is at war, you are open for business and you think about the future. And this is, as I said, extremely powerful message, and I think it's indeed our duty to embrace it and respond to it. Well, in that spirit, I would like to give the floor to our last speaker on the panel, Mantas Vilis. Mantas, I had the pleasure to meet Mantas in Vilnius in April when we had this region mid-clusters event. Mantas is coordinator of EEN and European Digital Innovation Hub, and he is very much a person behind the supply chain resilience platform, which was one of these, let's say, actions initiated after the start of the war. Mantas, over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, after such inspiring speeches, it's like hard to come and to contribute, but I'll try to do the best. And when there was the question, you know, who is like into the support of Ukraine, into the initiatives, we are like from the early stages doing the best that we can. And talking about the resilience, talking about the tools, initiatives, program strategies in order to be more resilient and so on, it's kind of obvious that it's important to start early. Nevertheless, it's super hard to prepare everything in advance, and and probably in some cases we are late, I mean, in responding to this. And I still do remember 2014, you know, when the initial conflict started to happen, and probably back then was already the time to, you know, step in and to work on more, you know, integrations and measures and tools interconnecting Ukraine with Europe and so on. So it's super hard to start early. Nevertheless, we have to start early. And yeah, this conflict was like a really good kickoff for many initiatives, many things that were on the agenda, planned and so on, but they actually were happening due to this. And yeah, you need some shock in order to start some things. And then I also trying to reflect the situation that was also clearly seen all over the Europe, even though the 24th of February was like super hard emotionally moment for all Europeans and also Ukrainian people and so, but it was super fastly felt all over the businesses, all over the Europe. And I also do represent the Enterprise Europe Network, a specific advisory network for all European and not only the European SMEs, trying to support and help the European SMEs in internationalization, innovation. And we clearly felt instantly the effect as we reach out and we talk with the companies daily. This is one of the brewery managers, and he said, "Oh my God! I mean, it's just a few weeks after this happening, and we already many export markers are gone. Many key ingredients that are crucial for our production are gone, or like with the delays, and we have to rethink the business and so on." Then I don't know. I talk with the associations. Associations were like again with so many critical alerts on critical components, goods that were sent and lost, and so on. So like instantaneously, all the Europe, all the SMEs, all the businesses were feeling this shock of the supply chain disruptions. And then the question was, how do we respond? How do we tackle this? And of course, we're supposed to be ready in advance earlier, but that was a shock. And then we said, okay, let's do some bottom-up. Let's do something synchronized or let's say orchestrated support. Because being from Lithuania, I'm a nano country that I represent in comparison, as you mentioned, how many Czech republics can fit into Ukraine. So Lithuania-wise, I mean, well, we are a super small company, and in so many cases we could not respond to these global challenges, could not help the companies because the challenges were beyond our reach. And then we said, what we can do, orchestrated, bottom-up, and with the actual support to the European and also Ukrainian businesses. So we came up with the initiative that is clearly listed here, Supply Chain Resilience Platform, as a response to these global challenges, disrupted supply chains and so on. So together with Enterprise Europe Network, together with the Cluster Collaboration Platform, together of course with the Commission and ISMEA, we built a virtual matchmaking platform that is basically attends all the issues that the companies are facing in terms of the supply chain disruptions. And that was like one unique development. I mean, you are well connected, you participate in different matchmaking events and so on, but we said we have to do it like quick, we have to do it totally virtual, we have to offer instantaneously the possibility to network and meet and to solve the issues that are hot now and super topical for the companies, because sometimes in the companies that was the matter of survival. I mean, you have to find alternative supplies, alternative markets, and you cannot wait for the next conference that you can attend. No, you have to do it now. So this was the backbone, the starting point for this Tinder platform for business to respond quickly and to have the options, because sometimes when we are boiling in our own juice in Europe, it's like okay when you have the incremental developments, but when you have the shock, you have to reach out globally because there are no other options and there is not that many opportunities, not that many alternatives, and you have to spot them out and to find them out quickly. So yes, we built the long-term virtual matchmaking platform that lasts not for the day, not for the two. It's like continuously ongoing living organism, I would say. Another important element that we found as a crucial for this such platform, that the entries, the proposals, the profiles within the system should be somehow validated, because the trust building was of an issue, because when there is a shock, there are many adventurous, I would say, businesses that kind of take the advantage of it. I mean, and we wanted to limit a bit this risk and to support the companies in finding, especially I take another example of the Lithuanian company that was like in electric engineering, doing some specific equipment. They had the suppliers for decades, so they knew everything was clear, and suddenly all of this disappeared. And for them to reach out for the new alternative suppliers, maybe not in Europe, that was a shock. I mean, they were like not ready to cope with the uncertainties, even though business-wise it's kind of okay. So we said we need to help, companies in terms of building trust, and for that we reached out for the Enterprise Europe network that has the presence in every region, every country, and so on. And there is a huge opportunity to connect to you guys, to clusters, cluster initiatives, cluster managers, to be part of this network. Otherwise, the trust building exercise can limit the potential of collaboration and supply chains, reestablishments. And another important element that this initiative goes beyond the EU, because we face the situation that Ukraine was, for instance, such an important supplier, partner in many things. And these things are not easily found in Europe, alternatives, I mean. There are some things for the metals in Scandinavia, there is some other things, but it's not much. And that was a big challenge to reach out globally to United States, to India, to Turkey, and so on and so forth. And that was the element that we succeeded to build to some extent. There we are continuously expanding the alternative supply chains offers from beyond the EU. So state of the art that we have now, we have like more than 800 users in this platform that are open, that are already put forward some proposals to collaborate. More than 150 are from Ukraine, so I'm super proud and happy with the active participation of Ukrainian companies. And typically it's a direct participation at the company level. Sometimes cluster managers also chip in and then also represent some of the companies. 43 plus countries. This number is continuously evolving, and we said, we've put the emphasis now on reaching out beyond the EU. And when it comes to the beauty, to the practicality of this platform, so it's not only the contact details, not only the indicative meetings that you can have. This is really concrete and to the point, because all the companies are expressing the hot topics, the hot issues that they face now. Sometimes the producers of the wagons and so on, they are looking for the materials, specific ones to supply, because they have to find alternatives for the production. Sometimes it's new suppliers or alternative products or sub-products or ingredients or components that the companies are missing. So it's really practical, and every cluster manager that knows his cluster could respond to this. Every company that goes into this platform easily can scan and check to which extent it's relevant for their business. And typically it's really, when for the matching to happen, typically it's super hard to get the requests that you need something. Typically everyone is offering, products, materials, and so on. In this database, in this platform, we have plenty of requests expressed. So there is not a super hard exercise to try to digest what is there and to respond. Product requests, service requests, other things. So plenty of living profiles are there. It's continuously updated. It's every day, like different companies, different suppliers are publishing some hot issues that needs the attention. And what we clearly see that this tremendous growth of the profile views, spectating, checking, and so on. But the beauty of this platform that you not only check the profile and respond, you can also book the meeting instantly. You don't wait the particular time, date, and so on. And the company is alerted that you can have the meeting virtually now in the platform. So it's like continuously meeting-oriented and connection-oriented platform that offers this functionality. And we have a number of meetings, like probably this slide is not that much updated. Meeting-wise, the numbers are more into the 500 range now. Time to time we do specialized events with a focus on a specific market, specific issue, and so on. We did a specific session on supporting the collaboration with Ukraine. Also, when there are some incoming missions from overseas, from States, Canada, and so on, we also do specialized sessions saying that, guys, let's reach out, let's connect, and so on. We have already a number of agreements made between the clusters, between the suppliers, and so on. And my call is here for you guys, being the cluster manager, cluster organization, company representative, and so on. It's down to earth tool that you can attend now. You can check what is there, what is the requested, what is needed, what is urgent. Same, you can publish and be visible there. And the most important and advantageous element is that you can, being proactive, you can book the meetings during the coffee break here and do the virtual meeting and respond, because the crucial element here was the pace of the developments. You know, all the Enterprise Europe network is committed to check and validate the profiles. So if there's a profile from Turkey, because there were some issues, especially with the emerging markets, new markets, and so on, it was hard to validate. Is it an actual company offering such a good price from, I don't know, Azerbaijan? Or is it really the case or a scam? I mean, it's like, therefore we reach out for the network, and we have some ways to build the trust and to validate the profiles that that's an actual company, that's you know, someone behind this, and so on. So I believe that would be beneficial for you as a cluster managers to offer something tangible for your company's members that are struggling, finding some challenges in the supply chain, but also, you know, making even an orchestrated events or something within this platform that is here for you. So in a nutshell, yeah, this is it. The link would be available through the slides. You can push this, and yeah, it's here for you, and I'm open for the questions and the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mantas. I think very powerful pitch for the platform, and I can only, you know, echo your words. You know, yeah, please, you know, be there. I mean, we really believe this is one of practical ways, you know, to help European companies to deal with the current challenges. Well, now I would like to open the floor for comments, questions, and we have a microphone in the room, I believe. Okay, so who would like to start? Please don't be shy. Yeah, I know. I knew I could count on you, Antonio. Can you give microphone to Antonio? Okay. Peter, maybe we have. Okay. Yeah, I think it's.
Honestly, I don't know. Is Ukrainian eligible for new projects? For example, for the projects that will come out from Euro clusters, is Ukrainian a potential participation? Because that will be very important, no? To
yes,
to open the projects, the proposal for them.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I can a bit respond. What I do typically, even though I interact with the Ukrainian colleagues on a daily basis, Enterprise Europe Network in Ukraine, Startup Fund and other things. So I talk with them. So typically the Ukrainian colleagues and partners, they already aware of the initiatives, EU funded or not, that might be relevant. On the other hand, typical exercise as we can do regularly on EU funding and tenders portal, you just search and you find I just, together with a consortium, we submit the proposal. There was an initiative by AEC, European Innovation Council, to support deep tech startups from Ukraine, financially, but also with some services. So there was a call, and there are a number of calls coming in. I mean, every thematic area, every specific call, one way or another, it's published on the EU tenders and funding portal. And yeah, the last initiative that we just submit the proposal, like, I don't know, weeks ago, with, I don't know, consortium of 30 plus partners, plenty from Ukraine and so on, as a response to the call. Of course, it's a competitive call, so as far as I know that there were like 20, 30 proposals at the table with the different Ukrainian stakeholders and so on. So definitely there are options, there are initiatives, and the European Commission, what I enjoy and clearly see, strategically puts forward the measures that are of a systemized and orchestrated nature. So it's not only like single grant or single initiatives, so they build the networks to support the startups, other initiatives, and so on.
Yeah. Sorry, I will clarify my question because it's in our hands. It's in the hands of the Euro clusters, there are 30 new Euro clusters. Every Euro cluster needs to define the calls. And we could limit or not, I think. Okay, we need to know if it is allowed. I hope it's allowed, but it's also in our hands. Every consortium could say, okay, it's open or not. So it's something that we could decide.
Okay. Perhaps I would just like to add to this the following. I mean, there is no like an easy answer because, of course, there is a variety of funds, variety of programs. I mean, what is, let's say, closest to us, I'm talking now about DG GROW, are the funds which are available under single market program, which is, by the way, not one of the biggest, let's say, pockets of EU money, but again, something on which we have a direct control. And for that, we still need a formal accession of Ukraine to the single market program, which is basically a bureaucratic process. And we clearly understand, Ukrainian government has quite few things on their plate, but again, we are hopeful this would happen soon. The big context is that, and this is actually a very strong commitment of our president. I mean, I quote, actually said in the State of the Union that Commission will work with Ukraine on its seamless access to the single market. I mean, seamless access, I mean, really, it's not membership per se, but of course it's a lot. And that, of course, means all types of tools that actually support integration of Ukraine into the single market, So again, there are a few bureaucratic things we have to do, but overall, we can assume, that there would be full access of Ukraine to different measures. Well, I would like to give the floor and to our, and please, of course, introduce yourself. We know each other, but
Thank you, Kuba. Sebastian Rynkiewicz, Metal Processing Cluster from Poland. I have question because we've got quite wide experience with cooperation with Ukrainian partners. We started in Interreg 2007 till 2013. Then economy, in fact, disappeared from the Interreg program, and we stopped our projects, but in fact we are still in a really good relation with our Ukrainian partners, since we are really proud of your fight for Europe. In fact, that is one of the reasons. And we forgot when we was with Kuba in Vilnius in end of April. My friend Martina with Olga prepared special B2B meeting after cluster to cluster, which provide Antonio. And one of our members have factory in Kharkiv, and I know that they started production after interrupted. But when we discuss in our cluster for the future, like Olga said, nobody knows how long it will be possible, what will be future. And my question is that we are ready on the European Union level to prepare a special individualization program for Ukraine, because my experience that it's not easy way to realize cross-border programs with two different law system and so on, and probably, of course, at the moment everybody would like to act, but we need also formal aspect, and we are ready in EU at the moment. And yesterday during opening session, conclusion was that we should act faster and focused on the problem. We are ready or not?
Well, I would be happy to maybe, because I think this is a big question are we ready? I think it's the answer is not simple, but I would like maybe still encourage the others to take the floor, both in terms of reactions to Ukraine, but also your own experience with dealing with supply chain problems over the last 2-3 years. So any No, I don't see. Okay. Just think about it. Don't hesitate, please, because I think that I would definitely like to hear from more people. But I can maybe give the floor for the time being back to the panel. Olga, you want to
Yeah, maybe I just thank you actually for that meeting. We had in April a meeting with some clusters in Ukraine and Polish metal cluster, and we had not only cluster to cluster meeting, but it was 19 meetings, B2B meetings during the session. Thank you so much. And I also would like to add that yes, during when the war started, all companies stopped, but some of them only for 5 days. Right now, everybody is working. All our automotive clusters and companies from automotive clusters, they are working. And even Volkswagen had a big event for our companies and said we will not cancel the projects. All projects are going on and even increasing because of some costs and other, but I hope human-centric also, because they even had some internal meetings with our companies, for example, Leoni, and gather all staff and gave a speech from Volkswagen top management and saying that we will proceed to work with you. So we are working, we are ready and open for collaboration.
Any more reactions on that side, maybe? Yeah.
Hey, yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'll try to initiate some discussion, but also with the audience on your experience. I mean, even though we, as I presented, we have the tools, we have the possibilities to interact and connect and to talk and to interconnect European and also Ukrainian companies, and it works rather okay when when we talk about like rather mature companies, rather strong, internationally known already companies in Ukraine. But then I look into the domain which is still with a huge potential. I look into the smaller companies, SMEs, and what I found, making the partnerships, making the linkages, that sometimes European partners have limited patience, I would say. When it comes to the interaction with the Ukrainian companies, because sometimes the Ukrainian companies, especially the small and medium SMEs, they are not yet at the at the international agenda or international experience that is kind of expected from international partners, and you have to work out the details, because sometimes even if it's a supplier of raw materials from Ukraine. But so far, it was only operational in Ukraine, and when you introduce this small Ukrainian company to the Lithuanian buyer, you see that there is still some. I'm not saying the educational work, but you have to work and you have to invest in building the relationships. So, have you ever had I don't know, the situations or practices where this investment pays off? I mean, because building new partnerships, especially with the smaller companies, especially in the emerging and new developing regions like Ukraine, it's not easy. It's not like by default. Have you had, I don't know, the experience, the approaches and practices when you interact with partners, new partners, small and medium enterprises from Ukraine, and what works, what doesn't work, what is the approach to take? Is there any experience in the room?
We have, you want to take the floor, please. I mean,
yes, Lucia Sel, cluster expert. But I can't answer the question. I was just trying to think a little bit ahead. Looking back at the time in 2019 at the European Cluster Conference in Bucharest, I think we were discussing very much about global value chains. Supply chains at the time, they were very much directly directed outside Europe. Today, it's rather the inward European look. I missed the discussion towards internationalization. So, are we? Where do you see the value chains on a global? Is it 80 to 40? Is it a shift in the orientation global towards local? But how much local can we afford to go? Do we still need keeping on the international connections that have been built up, still developing those that we are missing? So maybe, I don't know, some discussions or opinions on where is the journey going in trying to make the best out of the two directions.
No, very, very actually powerful question, I think, because it, indeed you ask the question: are we kind of completely reverting back from the idea of Europe as an open continent, for trade? I mean, I'm also happy to contribute to the discussion, but anyway, first I see who would like to speak on the panel on that. Olga, you want to yeah, and then I give the floor to Anais.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, also commenting your questions, yeah. Starting with the point that we are 40 million population, or yes, definitely some SME. Actually, in our automotive clusters, mostly SME. They work directly tier 2, but Volkswagen, Mercedes, BMW, and so on. And some of them never did it, never did any export relations. It is clear. I mean, this is big country, and we had really big internal market. So that's why, yes, support is needed. That's why, as I told you, we mobilized a lot of consultants who exactly support them in internationalization, in some kind of marketing plan development, supporting them in some even finding partners and so on. Yes, there are a lot of work to do. We do not say that 100% of SME are ready. No, it's not true. But we do have experience and we do have willingness to that. Maybe we do not know all models which exist, which you were presented today. It's interesting model, yeah, and we definitely open for such a kind of collaboration. Yes, that's why we need your support, and also some methodological and other kind of support. But still, we are a big country, so again, we do have suppliers to Volkswagen, and we do have small and medium enterprises who don't speak English.
Thanks a lot, Olga. Now Anais, and then I will give floor to Tero.
Yeah, so I just the first thing is in the health sector, obviously there is the emergency response, which I think not necessarily cluster were the first, coordinated a lot more with their local authority that actually responded to that. So in that sense, our cluster were more involved in initiative to respond, because we obviously stand with you. And in terms of the company collaboration, for example, the R&D developments are year-long. They need a lot of trust and so on. So this is something obviously that takes time. So it will not change from, let's say, one day to another. But I think companies are obviously open to collaborate. And just to go maybe to what Lucia has mentioned in terms of the supply chain, I think what we've seen, and maybe Tero can help on this, it's not going to be like a complete change from one day to another, but what we've seen throughout the crisis, that obviously company could not find what they needed. So the supply chain completely was disrupted, and this is where other country were actually very reinforcing their own national, for the US, for example. So this is where I think Europe kind of started to really think, okay, how can we really use this single market? How can we reinforce what we have inside? Because we cannot only depend on the outside, because as Tero said at the beginning, China was the main supplier for many things, and it was like a battlefield when you had to go find some supply. So I think there's definitely a shift. I think it's important that we really just look at what's available in Europe, because there's a lot available. Not everything has to come from the outside, but it's the same. It's political will, and it's a lot of time, because reinforcing new manufacturing sites, for example, it takes time to build, it takes money to build, but I think we need to be a bit more prepared in that, and not depending so much on others in terms of value chain. So, Tero, maybe.
Thanks a lot, Anais, and I will give the floor to Tero now.
Yeah, in terms of coming back to the supply chain management, of course, SMEs are smaller also from their resources, so they need to avoid risks. So if they have had breakages in their supply chains from Asia, for example, then they would naturally be looking closer to themselves. So is it your own country, or is it neighboring countries? So, so they need to avoid risk, but for them, so I would guess that the first priority would not be the countries with high risks, country risks for SMEs to secure their own production. But however, Also, in terms of supply chain management, it is common good practice that you have second and third sources, and then you might get so alternative sources. And this is when for example, our own EEN network has helped a lot our local SMEs, and I think that initiative that you presented is just great for that purpose as well. So and that probably can involve more Ukrainian companies too.
Okay, I see Sebastian willing to. Okay, please. Of course, I still encourage the others who haven't spoken
Okay,
yet. So
one remark from my experience. I'm sure of that we need new instruments, in fact, more elastic, in fact, and like Mantas said, we need patience with this relation. I'm sure of that, because when I see for the operational side, this factory in Kharkiv, technical directors are in Kharkiv, but financial management and administrative are in Suwałki in Poland. And it works during IT management and so on. But I'm sure of that SMEs in Europe cannot take such big risk to engage. And also, in my opinion, from my cluster, the mid-caps, for example, have potential to support it. They have more stability situation. We are engaged in Ukraine, and that is 10 or 50% of revenues. So it's the risk when we can manage, and that is, in my opinion, idea that we can do when we have Ukrainian National Association, we've got European Cluster Association. We should give concrete money. I don't know, that is the question to the decision maker, and start as soon as possible to show not only the military support, of course, that is at the moment the important thing, but to show also existing good or best practice. Hey guys, in Europe, in worldwide, it works. We can make it. I have no idea how many Polish inhabitants know that Polish company product in the Kharkiv at the moment. Everybody knows about counter-offensive, but the economic and normal rules life, they have no idea. And of course, 500 meters during the headquarters is the big wall in the street after the bombing. But they working, they lived, and they would like to develop the country and the business. And I think that is responsibility also for our side, the clusters environmental, to show as soon as possible good practice also in economical. We are ready, in fact, for that. That is our message from Poland.
Thank you very much, Sebastian. I think it's indeed a message to all of us that we don't think about Ukraine exclusively as a war zone, because this is indeed the which is correct. I mean, but indeed, you know, as Olga said, it's a huge country, you know, and indeed, you know, even close to the front lines, you have economic activity. Not to mention, of course, big parts of central and western Ukraine, where you know, indeed, there is still an impact of the war, but it's much less direct. So very good point for our community to pass that message. I have an impression. Yeah, please. So.
Hello, my name is Ewa Rekosz, and I'm from Mazovia Cluster ICT from Poland. We've been collaborating with Ukraine for many years, and we did some big projects and also some small projects. Our experience is that there are still policies and regulations which are not transparent enough to do the business without any hesitation. For example, we've been working, I think, for 3 years on a big project with Italians and Americans on a smart metering. And actually, after 3 years, unfortunately, due to changes in regulations, which were quite unexpected, we had to close the project. So I think most of our members a little bit reluctant to like go and invest or invest money, time, resources due to the regulations which are not so transparent. But still, the cooperation is going on, and hopefully will go on. So that's our lessons learned.
Thank you very much. I think this is indeed an important question. How much, let's say, change for the better we can expect after the war or from now on?
I don't know if I'm the level to answer such a question, because our Ukrainian cluster alliance is absolutely not depends on any state authorities, and actually no one cluster is funded by public authorities, by state authorities. No one cluster in Ukraine. So I do have, during my 20 years experience in such a project, much more examples. But what should I say, that right now, yes, we could have, I don't know, a lot of dissertation how it was in Ukraine during these 30 years. But right now, we do pay very high price, hundreds every day. I don't think that any untransparent, corrupted oligarchs and other, bad things will survive after the war.
Yeah, I think we all hope for that. I think Mantas wanted to take the floor.
Just a few days ago, in one of the conferences for digital transformation, I got the chance to chat a bit with the Vice Minister for the Digital Transformation Ministry, if I'm not mistaken, of Ukraine. So I was inspired by his, presentation on the changes that are coming. I mean, of course, big living organisms, as Ukraine is a big country, is not easy to change, but now it's a moment, I guess. And I totally solidarize with Olga mentioning that, yeah, now it's the moment to make the change. And, I'm looking really positive that this change would happen. And they have touching upon the digital agenda and their mandate. So they have a number of initiatives coming in, cashless, paperless, and so on and so forth. Of course, still needs to be implemented. The devil is in the details, as always, but at least the goodwill and ambition is there. Not easy, probably, to push all over these reforms in the times of the war. So there are other things to care, but somehow, I mean, I totally hear you as well. I mean, having this bureaucracy, other things, and so on. But somehow, through these presentations, I felt that there is a commitment, there is a mandate, but also actual steps taken in order to make this change. And another kind of slight response to the question that I mentioned, I mean, how to cope with the, different business cultures, different readiness levels, different variety of the SMEs in Ukraine and Europe. And my kind of answer, my feeling is that in these turbulent times and in these specific situations that we are just discussing, the role of intermediaries becomes crucial. And by intermediaries, I mean being it the public or governmental support initiatives in Ukraine and Europe, but same the role of clusters. I mean, the clusters, the cluster managers, the groupings, the clubs, the initiatives, the associations, that they do most of the job in order to prepare Ukrainian SMEs for international adventures, in order to make the links and to be, trust-building element. Because I do remember the days 20 years ago, Lithuania was also, relatively new, unexplored, and risky to some extent for some Western countries partner. And, through our evolution, I noticed that at least in these first steps, the role of intermediaries that can be there and can build trust and can vouch, or to some extent, and can, share actual happenings in the company. But sometimes even the language barrier is not kind of obvious, but not that easy to overcome. So the role of intermediaries, and yes, the clusters, super nice to meet and so on, but sometimes maybe we overlook the intermediaries or these actors that we could connect and be relevant to, because there are a number of clusters, clubs, associations, and so on, and all of them, they do important job. So probably a step forward is to find the relevant intermediary that you can trust and build the links, sign the memorandums and agreements and so on. And this is how to reach out and help the SMEs at the end of the day.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Mantas. So very, very, very good voice. Please, we'll give you microphone. Oh, okay.
Thank you. My name is Montse Davan. I'm the Science Policy Director at BioCat, the Bioregion of Catalonia, and internationalization also in our team. I just wanted to add something on the discussion about the dependency or the sovereignty. Mm-hmm. It's not about building fences, it's about managing complexity and interdependencies. And so it depends on the kind of sector that you are into. I mean, we are in health sector. It's probably in terms of complexity in the interdependencies among other sectors and kind of stakeholders is one of the more complex sectors probably represented here today, because we also include in this network of stakeholders, hospitals that perform clinical researchers from companies that come from other places in the world. And also, so one of the, probably the sectors that is managing better this sovereignty is actually health and economy, probably in the European perspective. And there are some other sectors that are not doing that better, that good or less. So for example, climate or defense, it depends on the countries. So what we have to do is managing, or so relying on the alliances, on the networks, on the cross-border collaboration, not to put fences, like I said, but to improve how we deal with this complexity. Yeah. So in this sense, we encourage also to take this example on health system, for example, how we manage this flexibility in approaching what an ecosystem is and building also those alliances across Europe. So there are some good reports on that. There's a ranking of countries that are doing better or worse. Yeah. And I think that is interesting to see how we can learn these lessons and complete these, you know, these collaborations that we sometimes don't look at, and build on this resilience guidelines that we're receiving also from the European policies. That's a very powerful tool for us. So I think this is interesting to build this sovereignty that we are looking for.
Thanks a lot. I think we really need to wrap up. So Antonio, maybe you would be the last speaking from the floor, and and then I would say also the panelists will have like let's say a chance to say one sentence takeaway from
Thank you. I need to say that I fully agree with Montse on what you just said. It's about mapping was critical during our exercise on COVID, you know, and we were able through mapping and through clusters to identify lots of capacities inside Europe that were not clearly allocated. So that's critical. No, but I was just going to propose another thing, okay? You know, we have a very good reference on what has been done through cluster on the InnoSub1 calls. Mm-hmm. You know, there were very good tools for helping SMEs to collaborate at the international level. And I really would encourage the Commission to renew the InnoSub1 scheme, perhaps with another name, you know, but renew it because we have experience. The evaluation of that program was excellent from your internal services. Mm-hmm. It's not something that I say, it's something that is written in your reports. And we could include the SMEs coming from the current member state, but also Ukraine, on those kind of very interesting project, because they are supported by the expertise coming from the cluster, from the consortia. So I think it will be an excellent tool, and so I would recommend to think about it.
We'll take note. Peter takes note, please. Thank you very much. I mean, time to wrap up. I may still just briefly from my side also reflection on your question, and you just said sovereignty, but without putting fences. I think you had a kind of a nuanced view on that. In 2005, there was a famous book called World is Flat by Thomas Friedman. Again, that was a kind of on top of it, that was like a brief history of 21st century. So he was not only just taking let's say state of play, but it was a projection how the world is going to be. We moved away from that quite a lot. That was of course a vision of a fully globalized world, but of course we are not going back, and I think when we look also a bit in the, let's say, European Commission take on those issues, you see that we are aware of the risks. I had in my, let's say, previous let's say role in the European Commission, we dealt with cybersecurity, and then it was a big issue. I'm sure you've heard security of 5G networks. By the way, I noticed that in Prague, actually, in the Prague. It's already, first 5G installations. And then there was this general notion that we cannot look at this issue purely on economic, from economic perspective, cheapest price, but there are so-called non-technical risks. These non-technical risks or political risks are something that, of course, have to be fully taken into consideration. It doesn't mean that we closed, it doesn't mean we cut our ties, but we just calculate this risk very seriously. So now, when we roll out, different measures, notably, just to speak about the raw materials, we see that part of the solution is not, of course, to now find everything inside Europe, but to have partnerships with, again, countries that we feel those risks are, let's say, less present. That's why, for example, a major push for partnership with Canada. It's just one example. So I think Europe will remain open, but will have to be, let's say, more selective, more cautious, and more calculating. And I think this is a bit the path forward. I even see the supply chain resilience platform. I mean, we have over 40 countries participating, which again is a kind of a testimony that we are, of course, looking to solutions of our problems, not just within EU27, but again, we will be now much more conscious than we were before. Well, we need to wrap up, so I suggest we just have all panelists have one sentence or one paragraph, maybe at most, to express what is the main takeaway. Maybe we start in a reverse order. So, Mantas, you spoke quite a lot, but I think you still deserve the chance to. Okay, we should have at least one microphone. Okay, so.
Three? Yes, thank you. The testimonial level two would be quick. The power is in networking and the way we orchestrate, in orchestrated manner, can do some things, and just go on the platform and find the partners and try to support your companies, your cluster members, the best way you can. The power is in there. Thank you.
Okay, Olga.
Okay. So should I say that we really have a strong will to be your partners and to be really built in your supply chains and your economy and to be integrated into Europe? Yes, we are.
Thank you very much. Tero?
Yes, I think that in a higher level we need to keep up the ability to innovate in Europe and kind of keep the flag high, Europe being the innovation expert, which means collaboration within Europe, but also nowadays also looking for new, safer markets. So dictatorship countries are not so interesting anymore.
Thank you, Mateja, please.
Okay. So today we didn't talk much about the circularity, but I do have two remarks. I would like to build on what you said about the InnoSub. I would also suggest that you closely look experience of Alpine ArdiaNet, which was Alpenspace project, which developed and tested so-called Innovation Express, which enable countries, regions to collaborate without totally they synchronize the calls, but they do not need to be in the same law space. It's workable, and I think this can be something very adjustable to Ukraine. So this is one thing. Another thing is that when it comes to development and innovation, yes, the supply chains are part of the story. We should not forget innovation, and we should not forget development of new value chains where circularity comes in, because we still have 2030 targets that we have to reach, and these things has to come together.
Thank you very much, Mateja, for these wise words. And Anais.
Okay, so for me, the clusters are connectors, and I think we've demonstrated that, and we need to use that for the future. Obviously, in emergency situation and looking at fast solutions to overcome when there are disruption on the supply chains, but also preparedness. I think this is what we are trying to work upon. To be ready for whatever comes across, because it seems we're in a very shaky world. So I think preparedness is very important also on our end.
Thank you very much, Anais. Thank you all. It was really a very insightful and interesting session, and we looked into issues of supply chain resilience, some very powerful cases, some solutions, and of course, very strong accent on Ukraine, absolutely justified. I really hope, many of you would follow up with concrete actions. At least you register on the supply chain platform. But of course, there are many different ways to follow up. And of course, we also take into account the proposals addressed to us. We take note of them. Absolutely. Thank you very much. Have a great lunch and use. Yeah.
Yeah. So about the site visits, the buses will leave at 2 o'clock on that side of the building. So if you go out, you turn right, and now lunch between 1 and 2, and then